I should be streaming, hopefully streaming on, I don't know, a bunch of networks. The place to watch Daily Chaos is, of course, dailychaos.news/show. Coming up in 6 minutes, Simon Bean, 77th Brigade. What is their role with coronavirus? Oh, hold on. Oh, blimey. Show. Hold on. Coming up. Oh, dear. Guess what? 6 minutes. Okay, right. Yes, 5 minutes. See you then. Okay, here we go. Oh, I got bored of that. Sorry. Copyright free, Nick bloody Clegg. God's sake. Share the show. God bless you. Nope, got bored of that too. Got bored. Oh no. Oh, they always use that for building society commercials. Can't use that. Simon Bean's got a green screen. Cool, blimey. Super. Hey folks, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good people, and welcome to the Daily Chaos. Auto app KO, know what I mean? Auto app fader. And now, oh yeah, I'm Olly Connolly. Thanks for turning up. Forgot that bit. Just had a glass of wine. Yes. What is it? 77th Brigade. Simon Bean, MBE. God bless him. Just a sec, Si. Hold on. Got a bit of spiel. Just a sec. Hey, share the show. Yeah, right. That's enough of that. Okay, the British Army is a propaganda agent in the COVID-19 info war. According to Wikipedia, 77th Brigade is actively promoting the UK government's dubious and totalitarian coronavirus policies. During the UK's government's daily coronavirus briefing on the 22nd of April 2020, General Sir Nick Carter confirmed that 77th Brigade are working with the Home Office Rapid Response Unit, helping, quote, to quash rumours from disinformation, but also to counter disinformation. The brigade uses Twitter and Facebook as well as PSYOP techniques, according to Wikipedia, to influence populations and behaviour. It is involved in manipulation of the media, including using fake online profiles. Let me just quickly reboot my sound card. Thank you. How very? Nick Clegg, yeah? Given that the COVID-19 stats are a crock of quack, or as political commentator David Vance suggested last night on Daily Chaos, are something more sinister, given that there is zero evidence of masks being useful, and that the Swedish Keep-Calm-Carry-On model, for example, has merit, i.e. given that the government trashing the UK economy and imposing soft martial law, in turn creating a scenario where far more may die of poverty than of this curious flu strain. What the Billy bollocks is going on? And why, oh why, is the British Army constraining reasonable debate from its own people and assisting dictatorial measures founded on sexed-up dossier-style pseudoscience or even politicised science? Titanic veteran, Maverick veteran Simon Bean, MBE, God bless him, joins me now to help join some dots. Simon Bean, good evening, sir. How
are you, Olly?
The belly bollocks are you?
I'm good. You know, tired.
Are you? Why are you tired? You're supposed to be retired. Not tired.
Yeah. Supposed to be retired, yeah. You sort of come
what does that mean for you?
And you say, well, that's it. I'm going to sort of hang my boots up and rest. But the veteran community of the UK, a bit like the veteran community of the United States and Australia, finds itself running around highlighting to its people the things that the government are perhaps reluctant to highlight. So you find that you're at war at home in a way. So it can be a bit tiring. So this past week sort of clocked up quite a few miles, about 1,200 miles or so, just going from the top of the country to the bottom of the country and across, you know, sort of meeting with individuals, assisting individuals, having, dare I say it, clandestine meetings, because you can't trust your social media or phone anymore to have a conversation, because you never know who's listening in, or if they are listening in, what information they're gathering, and are they going to actually cut you off at some point before you get your main point across. And it's, you know, it's happened just this past week again when I was on the phone to Plymouth. Just went dead, cut out halfway through the call. so had to then change phone networks, if you like, social media networks, to actually continue the call. So it's a bit of a pain, but like I say, algorithms can crash, and if you can keep switching from app to app to app, then that's what you have to do just to get information out. And if it means that you have to travel to meet somebody and have a face-to-face in the middle of nowhere, where you're less likely to be, dare I say it, bugged, then that's the way it sort of has to be done.
Absolutely.
So we're back
incredible.
to the bad old days of wrapping our mobile phones in tin foil and leaving them in the microwave of a night time so that nobody can hack into it. Because your microwave acts like a Faraday cage. So if you wrap it in tin foil, put it in the microwave, don't switch the microwave on, just put it in the microwave, that phone can't be tapped into because it's trapped inside a Faraday cage. Nothing can get in, nothing can get out.
Wow. So good tip, sir. Hold on a sec. But how is that useful? Because when you want to make a call, you need to crawl in to the microwave oven.
To get up close and personal with your piece of fillet chicken. No. What you actually do is you just put your phone in there of a night time when you're not using it.
So basically you confuse these people that are trying to trace our every move. You're confusing them. That's what you're suggesting.
Pretty much. Denying them access.
Denying them access.
Deniability is the word.
But not for long. Not for long. Only whilst the phone is in the microwave oven.
In the microwave. And then you're back to switching through different things. So you could be making a phone call on WhatsApp, and then suddenly it dies. So you switch over to Signal, and then suddenly that gets tampered with. So you're back to something else. Maybe you'll just go back to your previous.
Our next show, Mr. Bean. I'm taking a holiday for a week, maybe two, people.
Cool.
But our next show, sir, I would love to do something like clandestine techniques, because people, apparently, we need to know this. You segued.
I think everybody needs to know it nowadays because we live in the 21st century. Surveillance is at top of the list. Surveillance has always been there, but in the old days, if you watch the old black and white movies, it was always some bloke in a trilby hat following another bloke in another trilby hat. Whereas nowadays, it's all done through telecommunications and technology. So, you don't actually have to be in line of sight of the person you're surveilling these days. You can surveil them and they're on the opposite side of the world just by tapping into their telephone signal or their IP address on their internet, etc.
The thing that concerns me, Simon, is that it appears that we are all being surveilled by default now. That we are all, if you like, presumed guilty until found innocent. Whatever innocent means, like woke or pro-China, pro-globalization fascism, as opposed to, let's ask some questions. Let's question our government. Now, apparently, that is deemed some kind of, hate crime or something. You segued in what you have said up to now perfectly into tonight's topic, 77th Brigade, an arm of the British Army surveilling the British people. Apparently, now you tell me please, is this by default or is this founded on evidence of individuals that should be surveilled?
Well, 77 Brigade is a brigade that was sort of pulled out of mothballs, if you like, resurrected. It's a brigade that's made up of regular military personnel plus reservist personnel. It's very top heavy in the officer ranks, particularly around sort of the lieutenant colonel sort of range. You've got a guy called Lieutenant Colonel Rupert Burridge, who actually is one of the top men in there. But you've also got Lieutenant Colonel Tobias Ellwood in there. Now, that sort of rings an alarm bell with me straight away, because Tobias Ellwood, who was Secretary of State for Defence not so very long ago, he is currently the chairman of the Defence Committee. But he is also a reservist lieutenant colonel in 77 Brigade. So that straight away you've got a conflict of interest. Because
what do you mean? Why?
Well, because he, as the Defence Committee is supposed to sit there and regulate, if you like, and look into any wrongdoings that may go on within sort of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, etc. But he is a member of Her Majesty's Armed Forces, so there's a little bit of a worry straight away. And he's also a member of 77 Brigade, which is a brigade that is now, and they've more or less admitted it on open source now, that it's there to surveil the population of the UK. Now,
they've actually admitted it on the mainstream media, haven't they? I mean, on Wikipedia, I was just researching 77 because ignorant that I am, I didn't know anything about 77 Brigade until you brought it up on the last show we did together, and it pricked my ears right up because I didn't understand why the British Army would be involved in that sort of stuff. And we'll talk about why MI5 is, if you like, being, the difference there. But on Wikipedia, basic research, and it says they are actively involved in propaganda, selling the government's line, for example, on coronavirus, infiltrating itself with fake accounts. Nick Clegg, take note. Close down those fake accounts. I'm sure you will. On Facebook, for example. And just mad.
Is, like, I don't blame anybody that serves within 77 Brigade, because at the end of the day, they're following policy.
Yes.
Now, the question
they're taking orders.
To be asked is, where is that policy coming from?
Yes.
Now, you could say, well, it's the Ministry of Defence because it's a defence issue. Well, you could then take it another step and say, well, it's the government because the government controls the Ministry of Defence. But then, as we've said in the past, governments come and go, individuals come and go. So it's not so much when we're talking about government and Ministry of Defence, we're really talking about individuals within the civil service. Now, the top man, and it's the name that is ingrained in my head now, Stephen Lovegrove, is the head civil servant within the Ministry of Defence. And we already know, I've had a conversation only about half an hour ago, we're ruffling his feathers. He's away on holiday at the moment, and we're going to ruffle his feathers a little bit more before he gets back, so that, just to sort of round things off, so to speak. But he's the one that sort of writes policy, dictates policy, and pushes that through the Secretary of State for Defence, which is Ben Wallace, and then it filters out then to everybody else serving military. So, CDS, CGS, so Chief of the Defence Staff, Chief of the General Staff, and then it goes out to the mainstream army. Now, so that's where really the policy is made, is where it is with Stephen Lovegrove. So he's really sort of the number one man responsible, really. Now, it was originally put in place to carry out surveillance, communications surveillance, let's say, and gather information to keep the people of the UK safe. So when you have things like the Ariana Grande concert bombing of 2017, any intel leading up to that would have been picked up by this brigade by listening into telephone conversations, etc. But not everybody's telephone conversations, just a select few, those people that you perhaps
those 24,000 avowed jihadists or something that
sort of
would
so
reckon
anybody
are in the UK. Keep those channel crossings going. Pretty wonderful.
That's it.
Sorry.
So anybody that gives you just cause for surveillance, they're the people that you surveil. But at the same time, because everything's linked into computers, if you come up with a buzzword, so let's say you come up with a word, a 4-letter word beginning with B, that's going to be picked up by the algorithm, and straight away that phone call will be brought to the attention of people within GCHQ, so Government Communications Headquarters.
4-letter word beginning with B.
Came in and said,
Bojo.
I am going to go and shoot, and then put a name on the end. Straight away, that would activate an algorithm, and that phone call will be picked up on. And this is where the whole system breaks down, really, because we've discovered that algorithm can only cope with about 3,000 to 4,000 bits of information every second. So if everybody's if they're listening in on everybody, which is now what they've openly said, and everybody is tweeting more, Facebooking more, using their mobile phones and their landlines more, well, it doesn't take very long for that algorithm to be overwhelmed, and then the whole thing breaks down. Now, that's not a bad thing for us if we're trying to pass information between one another about information received. But the dangerous side of that, of course, is that the real stuff, the real dangerous stuff that they should be picking up on isn't being picked up on at all because it's so overloaded with chatter. So they've basically changed tack. And as you've said, they've said it in mainstream media, it's there on Wikipedia as well and other sources throughout the interweb, that they're not now just looking at our safety from an outside threat or maybe an internal bona fide threat. They're, if you like, spying on everybody.
Everybody is very curious what this 4-letter word beginning with B is. We've got boob, bums, and I muted like Bojo.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Why do we need?
It's all buzzwords, basically.
Yes.
So, and you would have seen American type films where you've got people working in the telecommunications network.
Yeah.
In the CIA or whatever, and suddenly something comes up. Oh, we've just had a threat come through on the president, and everybody suddenly descends upon that given address.
That's right,
and that's the whole point of 7/7 Brigade. But we now
why Simon?
We're now in a position of domestic hybrid warfare. Is basically what we're fighting.
Now hold on, we'll come on to that. Domestic hybrid warfare. We will definitely come on to that. But before we do, why do we need 77th Brigade in this role at all when we have MI5?
I think you'll probably find that MI5, because MI5 is domestic. So MI5 looks after sort of national security. And then MI6 would be like the Secret Service, and they would do stuff outside the country, or they would listen in on information outside the country and then pass it to MI5 if they thought it was a threat to us here.
Right.
Very loosely sort of explained. So
yeah, good explanation.
It wouldn't sort of surprise me if MI5 are all part of this, because at the end of the day, it all runs through GCHQ. GCHQ is MI5, MI6, and 77 Brigade will all run through that, which is Government Communications Headquarters. So
the thing is, there's something very concerning to me about British Armed Forces getting involved in propaganda. It seems to me that is not their role at all. I can understand why MI5, MI6 are involved in that, frankly. I can understand that. And hopefully it's done for the right reasons. That's another debate entirely. But the British Army, I didn't think that was the role of the British Army and the British military forces whatsoever.
You would have intelligence sections in all our services.
Sure.
That gather information on behalf of the government. But like I say, it's all to do with, terrorism, known terrorists, things like that, known threats, perceived threats, and all that sort of stuff. But the worrying thing is now is that it's being used against the people of the country, and that's the question that needs to be asked is who if you like is running the country, because it's clearly not the Prime Minister.
This was a debate I was having with David Vance last night, political commentator David Vance, and yes, absolutely, who is running the country, because it clearly is not the Prime Minister, who was talking about herd immunity and did a complete U-turn within days. Let me just say to you, sir, this that I read on Wikipedia. I mean, how mainstream is that? And they say that the Brigade uses Twitter and Facebook as well as PSYOP techniques to influence populations and behavior. It is involved in manipulation of the media, including using fake online profiles. And it also says, Wikipedia also says about 77th Brigade, which I imagine the British Army could ask to be edited if they wanted, during the UK government's daily coronavirus briefing on the 22nd of April this year, General Sir Nick Carter confirmed that 77th Brigade are working with the Home Office Rapid Response Unit, helping to quash rumours from misinformation, but also to counter disinformation. Does that mean, for example, Simon Bean, that when I put a post up on Facebook which questions the official narrative and the quack science at best that constitutes us having to wear a mask, the science that is being discussed from a government which told us not that long ago that they were nonsense, the molecules would just freely pass through those masks, tiny things, and that is telling doctors, for example, if in doubt, put COVID-19 on the death certificate and we'll tot it up on the stats. In other words, the stats are a load of crap. How?
And the people knew that back in March.
Yes, sir. How on earth can the British Army be involved in a propaganda campaign like this, founded on pseudoscience at best?
This is a different branch of the army. So you've got the army that everybody knows. It's the army that sort of goes, fights wars, etc. The part of the army that I belonged to when I was in.
Yeah.
And then you've got this clandestine bit of army. But when it's designated an army, unit designation, if you like 77 Brigade, then that's made up of professional civilians that are highly trained in intelligence gathering and communications. It would be uniformed officers, but they would probably be just more like the people that have to be there to give it a bona fide military appearance. And then you'd have all your reserve forces in there, people like Tobias Ellwood, etc. So these people really are highly trained in many cases, highly qualified, highly experienced people in their given fields, but they've been drafted into this unit, which has been given a British Army designation so that they can gather this information. So, you can't really confuse it with the army, as in sort of fighting soldiers out in the battlefield, because it's a totally different sort of section of it, which is where it all comes under Government Communications Headquarters. So,
do they not take the same oath?
Take the same oath, or should take the same oath. And we've asked questions. How can you join the army last year and be a lieutenant colonel this year, working in 77 Brigade when it was probably, it's best part of a year for training. So how do you go from zero, if you like, to lieutenant colonel, which is basically somebody who would command a regiment?
Yeah.
How do you achieve that in a year? And it just goes, if you were to put them out in the battlefield, they would probably fail, a lot of these people, because they've never sort of done real life army, and they've never sort of fought, and they don't understand perhaps logistic chains and how they all work, and etc., etc. But what they do understand is politics. Telecommunications. And
telecommunications or politics.
So if you got a BT engineer, there's probably BT engineers that have applied for jobs in the paper, not really understanding what that job is, but they suddenly find themselves employed within GCHQ at Cheltenham. Which happens often, and then they have to swear their oath of allegiance. They sign the Official Secrets Act, and they can never tell anybody what they actually do in Cheltenham.
Just as an aside,
people guess.
Just as an aside, Simon, a random aside, but an important one. Before we come back, are these people actually, given Huawei, which is still very much enmeshed in British communications for years to come, thanks to this government, guaranteed. Are these people assisting the Chinese government and totalitarianism and the United Nations, which all seems to be much of a muchness?
It's all sort of embroiled in, isn't it?
Yeah. But are they assisting them? Or are they assisting the people that actually pay their wage, the British people? What's your take on that?
In my personal opinion, what they should be doing is serving Queen and country. Because once you sign an oath of allegiance and you swear that oath of allegiance and you take the Queen's shilling, whatever that's worth these days, then that's you protecting your country. And as a patriot, you're protecting your countries from enemies, foreign and domestic. So that's what they should be concentrating on. But I think the domestic bit has sort of gone a little bit too far now, and the government has perhaps over the past few months with this COVID business dug themselves into such a deep hole that they don't know how to get out of it. They realise that a large percentage of the population realises that COVID-19 isn't the big depopulation killer pandemic that they led us to believe way back in January, February, March.
Yes.
But now they have to, if you like, keep that pretense going to a very, very high degree.
Why?
Because they don't want to lose face and admit and say, all right,
we've got another 4 years to the election. They could get away with being honest.
But we can get them out. We can get them out, Ollie. But this
How can we get them out? How can we get them out? How can we get them out without a coup, without a military coup with decent generals?
If you're talking military coup, then you have to.
Well, I don't know. You tell me. How can we get them out, Simon? Well, I don't know. You tell me. How can we get them out? Not necessarily with a coup.
You can get them out using the Constitution.
Tell me.
I don't understand it. You'll have to ask somebody who understands the Constitution. But I'm told day in, day out, the Constitution is a solution. The only way you'll get the government out ahead of that time is to use the Constitution. So don't forget they're employed by us. So they're our employees. We're taxpayers, UK taxpayers. We're the employer. They're our employees. So there's no reason why we can't use the Constitution to write 650 P45s out, stomp into the Houses of Parliament and issue those P45s. But you need to ask someone like Graham Thompson, who would have the answers to that, or somebody like Nathan Kirkton, Gary Clark, because they're all well up on it, whereas I am not.
Yes. Well, they are, but the problem is it not, public opinion. And the fact is that people are so shy to do anything bar queue and put up with channel crossings, for example, and to keep turning on the BBC. I'm not talking about us in this community. Sadly, we're not allowed to reach out beyond this community because of, I don't know, 77th Brigade, who are infiltrating our groups and, putting fake Brexiteers in charge of Brexit groups, for example. The Bruges Group, and so on and so forth.
This is where our politicians aren't clever and the American ones are. And I'll give you an example there.
Please.
President Trump said in January, February, use that, what do you call it? That bloody drug, that
hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. Use this, it will cure it. I'm using it every day and I'm not getting coronavirus. And he said that, and then everybody poo-pooed him, but he turned around and said, no, seriously, it works. I've spoken to the health professionals, the scientists, etc.
Yeah.
It works. Well, of course, then other people started coming out, so he sort of went off the subject. But
you get a Facebook jail. You get a Facebook jailing for suggesting that.
He's in a position now where he can come back and say, there, I told you. Whereas our politicians haven't, not once. They've always just gone of their own opinion. They've not followed the scientific research that's coming in from all over the world. They're not looking at figures as to why Singapore not been hit so hard? Why South Korea not been hit so hard? Why has that not been happening? Why is that? They've just been cocooned, locking us down without a lockdown because they still allowed all the flights to continue with people flying in from all over the world. They're still allowing 200 plus migrants coming over our channel every day. Yes. Well, what's the point in locking down certain cities and towns within the UK if we've still got twats, as I call them, travellers without authority to stay, coming over the channel on a daily basis?
Travellers without authority to stay. Twats. Well,
not official, but I like that mnemonic and I'm going to use it more. So at the end of the day,
Trump is a rare.
Our government, I think they stand in front of the mirror, they tell themselves lies, they actually suck up and believe their own lies and then can't work out a good way of retrieving themselves from that lie. They just get deeper and deeper and deeper in the mire and screw themselves right up. And
in the swamp. Let's be accurate.
Do us a favour. Anybody that's making a noise about us, listen in on them. And if they get out of hand, go and lift them. That's what they're saying. Whereas President Trump, he's saying, well, I've got my get out of jail free card because I told you that ages ago and you didn't listen.
Simon, God bless you, mate. The fact is, though, that Trump is, it appears to me, so far, and I don't know nothing, but it appears to me, from what I have seen, that he's the genuine article, whereas Boris is just another swamp monster who is waiting for his chance to stop Brexit, who is delivering the will of the Bilderberg Group, of the cabal, of the globalist fascism, whatever you want, George Soros, whatever you want to call it, the Rothschilds, all of that lot, this tiny elite few. And all of these Tories on Blue Rinse Brigade or whatever, they're basically a bunch of Jobsworths, like journalists who are only concerned with the next month's paycheck. They're more interested in that than they are in their long-term freedom. Never mind their kids. That's how stupid they are.
But we've proved that. We've proved that with the EU military unification campaign that we've been running for 6 years now. And you got the likes of David Ellis has been on it for over 10 years. Well, I've only been on it 6 years. David Ellis and a lot of others have been on it a lot longer than that. and if you mention it to an MP, oh, we don't know anything about it. It's not happening. Well, it is happening. We know it's happening.
Lying bastards.
Yeah, it's under all these different treaties. So, but can we get them to talk about it? No. But there is something coming out on that on Friday, because me and David Ellis are going to do a live on Friday about that. So,
what is happening on Friday? More or less.
We're going to talk about EU military union.
So that's not on hold.
And the latest line, line from the government.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
Can't tell it right now because we've got to do it live then.
Okay.
Because we've got to wait for somebody not to be around.
Right. What, go on holiday? Somebody? Okay. Let's take some comments. See what people have got to say. Sound, Ollie, you are too loud and your guest is quiet by comparison. Hopefully I've sorted that out now. Thank you, Jay. Libel, a 4-letter word beginning with B, such as bums. There's a lot of bums in the UK Parliament, that's for sure. Jay Carey also says there's a good chance we're seeing a repeat of World War II, where the other parties were pretty awful, which encouraged people to side with the Nationalist and Socialist Workers' Party, aka the Nazi Party, with Hitler at the helm. That's a whole different show. My God, we could debate that. We could really, really debate that.
I think right, though, doesn't
pattern.
It? Our government is becoming more and more socialist. And I put out on a feed yesterday, I think it was, about military officers, why they're not speaking out about anything. Well, they're on a ban. They've been threatened, if you like, by the government, by the Ministry of Defence, by the civil serpents, whoever they are, to say, do not mention this, do not mention that, because you're under the oath, you're still on the payroll of the Ministry of Defence, so you're not allowed. And retired officers have also been sort of told to do the same, although, if they're not worrying too much about their houses, their pensions, their consultancy jobs and all this sort of stuff, then they tend to speak out. So, and there are some that we've got on side that speak out on a regular basis. But, the bottom line is that these people are being threatened into saying absolutely nothing. And if that isn't a telltale sign of socialism, then I don't know what is. And when the Red Army had the same sort of policy in 37, 39, and they were told, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. Mr. Stalin's got it all in hand, don't rock the boat. Well, by the time they sort of plucked up the courage to rock the boat, Stalin had them all done and then buried them in what is now Poland. So 37 to 39, the purges, which is why in 1941, when Hitler invaded Russia, he was able to get within 30 kilometers of Moscow very, very quickly prior to the winter kicking in, because they had no experienced officers to lead their troops. So it was only the winter kicking in that gave them the ability to train some officers up in their different kinds of warfare that they thought they may use, a lot of which was irregular warfare, which is funny enough being used now, that allowed them to push the Germans back. So, perhaps history is repeating itself. And our government has gone so far to the left, because we haven't got any right-wing government anymore. Conservatives used to be in the middle, didn't they? Labour used to be sort of, centre-right, I suppose, and then you had Liberals down at the left end. Well, now everyone's slid down the left end. It's like a greasy seesaw, isn't it? They've all gone.
Yeah, but these are just labels, aren't they, Simon? They're just labels. Huh? I mean, the Labour Party, when Tony Blair became leader of the Labour Party and got rid of Clause 4, for example, that was the turning point in the Labour Party, big time. And it just was no longer a socialist party as such, in inverted commas. And with the Tories, then Blair, in turn, drew the Tories towards the centre. and they just became a couple of centrist parties with the Lib Dems like centrists, but just with stupid people involved. And it was like just a mishmash of centrists. And the duopolistic politics, if you like, a Pepsi challenge, Pepsi Coke. What do you prefer? They'll both rot your teeth and give you cancer. These are just labels, aren't they? It's like people reckon they're liberals today when they aren't liberal at all. Liberal with a capital L, but not liberal with a small l. I think I'm a liberal, and they reckon I'm a fascist or right wing or something like that. Right. When actually the fascists are the people that are telling the Marxists what to do. And these sort of like, happy clappy Marxists that haven't got a brain cell between them pretty much are being controlled by globalist fascists. I mean, you cannot make it up. But my point, Simon, the labels are all crap.
That's right. They are. They are totally. Because I can remember growing up, my family always voted Labour. Always. Working class family. I was brought up Labour, and that was that. And then it probably wasn't until I joined the army that my allegiance changed a little bit more towards Conservatives, because Conservatives gave better pay rises than Labour did. And that was the only real reason for it. And that was under Maggie Thatcher. Once Maggie Thatcher left and your man John Major got in and things started to take a bit of a slide, my politics took a bit of a slide with it. And I thought, well, I'm not going to vote for Conservative anymore, because you've got this grey man running the Conservative Party. So I headed back into sort of Labour territory, pretty much. Whereas now, I don't know where I am. Because I'm quite liberal in my views. I'm a sort of leave people alone, let people live, do what they want to do, that sort of guy. But at the same time, understand what's right and what's wrong. So
good values, common values, really and mutual respect.
Politics. But as you say, when it comes to Conservative, Labour, Liberal, have we even got Liberal anymore? It's just a mess, isn't it? You've got far right, far left, which
we are the Liberals. Thing. Simon, we are the Liberals.
The normal people are the Liberals.
Well, yeah, I mean, just with good values.
Live and let live.
Live and let live. Do not interfere with me. I will not interfere with you. And mutual respect.
I think so. I think you got it there.
We never defeated fascism.
No. And people have got the wrong idea of fascism, haven't they, Ollie? Because everybody thinks fascists are far right when they're not. You got far right fascism and you got far left fascism, which is why the Nazis were National Socialists, which is far left fascists. And if you, and I did this on a live a couple of years ago, I had a piece of paper and I sort of put far left, far right and centre written on this piece of paper, and stated that if you want to get from A to the shortest route from A to B is a straight line, especially if you bend time and space. And I turned this piece of paper into a roll, and there you had far left, far right come together, because they're the same. There's the same thing. The centre always stays in the centre, but the ends are always the same. They come together. They are one and the same. So when these lefty people dictate to patriots, and the definition of a patriot is somebody who's willing to stand up for what's right and fight against enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
When they turn around and call us patriots far right, I get a bit sort of annoyed about that. And then I have to remind them in my own sort of way that they're the fascists. Antifa doesn't mean anti-fascist. It just means anti-right-wing fascist.
That's right.
They're forgetting that's all it means.
Well, it means anti. No, it doesn't even mean that, I don't think. I think it means anti-true liberal. It means anti anybody that is going against the wallet in the back pocket of George Soros. I mean, that is apparently...
Oh, well, he funds them, doesn't he?
Well, exactly. I mean, it's disgusting. Why that guy hasn't been locked up? Now, somebody did ask why. If Boris is true, for example, has that guy not been locked up? But you know what? I mean, it's a big swamp. It's a deep, deep swamp. Let me take a few more comments, and then we'll carry on with this exciting conversation. Simon, God bless you, mate. Pauline Smith, does anyone know why Doris J, I think she means Boris, said, "Don't eat ice cream" during the COVID talks? Pauline, I've got absolutely no idea. Dawn W, first I've heard.
That was because he said cold doesn't kill COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's right. Viruses
doesn't kill COVID and cold doesn't kill COVID. So don't go out eating ice cream expecting that you're going to be cured.
That actually just about sums up the science.
Because he comes up with off-the-wall things like that, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, he can be quite Trumpian like that. And it's quite cute. But the fact is that there is zero science there. And that about sums it up. I mean, this masks business now, where I'm in Spain, in Valencia in Spain, yeah, and they still adhere to this kind of Francoist mentality where people obey what they're told to do. And I'm afraid it's partly that Francoist dictatorship thing, and it's partly that Catholic thing, which is why, by the way, another great reason why the UK had to get the hell out of the EU, because it's a completely different mindset. But here, people are walking along the shore of the beach. I'm living on the beach, yeah. People are walking up and down the shoreline with this gorgeous sea breeze coming in, perpendicular to the beach. And they're walking along with masks. And then, by the way, you can, the beach is one of the few places you can walk in Spain without having to wear a mask now. There's an exception on the beaches. You walk along the passageway coming off the beach onto the hardcore, if you like, and the hard standing. And the police, they told my other half, yeah, they said to her last night, "You've got to be wearing your mask." She was still on the beach. She was still on the beach. They're saying to them now, even though, basically the bottom line, Simon, is that people are just being told a lot of blarney by people.
I think people are realising now, Ollie, that they're being told a lot of blarney. A lot of people have seen through it. It's taken a bit of time.
I don't think they are here.
Maybe the older generation is being sucked in still. The younger generation is starting to break out, as we saw in that Liverpool protest the other day when that young girl did a fantastic speech. And then I suppose you've got all of us in the middle sort of being quite defiant, really. I must admit, I've not worn a mask in the shops or anything like that. And when I get in the shops, I've always got one in my pocket just in case. But when I get in the shops, there's other people not wearing them. You find that a lot of the shop assistants are not wearing them. And if you strike up a bit of a conversation with them when you're waiting to pay for your food with your card, I sort of tend to sort of say, "Oh, I've only got cash on me." "Yeah, that's all right. We'll take the cash." "Oh, I'm glad to see you're not wearing a mask." "No, and you're not wearing a mask either. That's good to see. That's refreshing, to see somebody's face as opposed to just a mask with a set of eyes poking above it." So I think a lot of people are seeing through it over here and are starting to ignore it. A friend of mine who has a problem with his hearing wears £3,000 worth of hearing aids. And his argument is, I cannot wear a mask because they're these little hidden things that hook round his ears. And every time he pulls the mask off they fly with the mask. And of course, they're delicate. So if they hit the ground, that's £3,000 down the tubes. So he's now sort of very reluctant to wear them. And he's not normally somebody to rock the boat, but he is rocking the boat and saying, "I'm not wearing them unless you're willing to pay me £3,000 if I have an accident." So, that I think a lot of people are starting to see through it. I think a lot of people are realising that the government isn't telling the whole truth. And coming sort of full circle on it, that's perhaps why the government is feeding us all this propaganda to try and scare us into being controlled by them, to hide the fact that everybody's overreacted completely and there was absolutely no need for it. And today it was on social media somewhere I was reading, they still haven't, and Sky News as well, funny enough, said today, that they still haven't had the results from Matt Hancock's rejig, if you like, of the results, when they realised that they were double counting, triple counting COVID results, and also counting people that died 5 or 6 weeks after testing positive for COVID, were still being reported as a COVID death, even though they perhaps had their skull crushed under the number 17 bus. So we're still waiting on things like that, and they're not very forthcoming. And I think the reason why they're not very forthcoming, Ollie, is because they're hoping that we'll forget that they said that they were going to have a relook at all these different results. Knowing that when they put those results out, if we haven't forgotten and we keep putting the pressure on, we want the results, we want the results, we want the results, the death rate from COVID will probably be less than 1,000, and all the others will be down to other illnesses that the victims had anyway.
Do you think that the government has overreacted? Or do you think that the government is complicit in a plandemic?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I think they've overreacted, and they've also been complicit in the party line that I can't even remember where the party line started now, because originally it was WHO that was saying, oh, it's this, it's that, you must do this.
Well, no, originally, the WHO, Simon, just to interject briefly, just to be very clear here, originally, the WHO had nothing to do with this because they didn't go to China for months. Then they basically took a backseat. And it was quite clear that China was dictating all the policy about the narrative, the official narrative of this thing. And then the WHO got involved. Just carry on, please. I just wanted to clarify that because the WHO, let's not forget, they have been utterly useless and a China puppet in all of this.
They're part of the United Nations, and anything to do with the United Nations, I know from personal experience in Bosnia, is they're useless. So don't get me started on the UN, for Christ's sake.
Well, we could have a rant about the UN, but maybe not tonight. Carry on, please. So you think a bit of each. I just wonder if this whole thing is being used, however it came. Maybe let's just, for devil's advocate's sake, whatever, say it did come out of this wet market and it was all very innocent, had nothing to do with those biowarfare laboratories that Gates and Fauci chucked money at and what have you in Wuhan, China. Let's assume it was innocent.
I think it was on UK Column News today, and they had all the companies, the top 100 companies, how they'd all lost billions and trillions of pounds off the stock market, apart from the pharmaceutical companies. Mm-hmm. Now, if that doesn't wake people up, I don't know what does, because it's only the pharmaceutical companies that have stayed up and are perhaps in the value of each of their shares, whereas
Amazon and
else
people
has lost money.
Is it possible that this thing, however it came about, because we're never going to know the truth of that, is being used as a political exercise to try to oust democracy in the United States, because there are people simply that do not want to go to jail, do not want that swamp to be drained?
It's quite possible, isn't it? Because President Trump is over there, and he said that he would drain this swamp when he first got in there, and he's up for re-election later this year, and I just hope to God he gets in again. And I think he will. I think he will, because he's actually he's somebody I think that we would like over here as a prime minister. I can remember working in Southampton Docks before Trump got in and before Boris got in, and people were sort of on their tea breaks were speculating who was going to be the next president. Was Obama going to stay, or was this Trump fella going to get in?
Well, it was Clinton, wasn't it? It was
yeah,
Hillary.
and then Trump did, and then everybody was saying, "Oh, all we need now is Boris to get in," and it doesn't matter whether the politics is shit or not on either side of the pond. At least we'll all be able to have a bloody good laugh, and that was how people saw it. Well, of course, fast forward a couple of years from that, and then Boris did get in. And I, for one, was quite pleased. I thought, oh, thank God. He and President Trump, similar in lots of ways. He seems to be sort of making all the right noises. The president over there and our prime minister have always worked closely together. So this can only be a good thing. And then all of a sudden, what happened with the coronavirus, and everything's gone downhill ever since. So I hope that President Trump stays in, because he is draining that swamp and arrests are being made of people that probably didn't ever expect to be arrested. I'm still sort of quietly hoping that it's going to come over to here. I'm also quietly hoping that Boris is perhaps doing that as we speak, going through with his plan, which is why we never see him.
The what will come over here?
Perhaps he's quietly drafting his plan of who to arrest over here.
Ah, you mean the swamp arrest?
The swamp. So, because we never see him anymore, do we? He's always got somebody else speaking on his behalf.
Who? What, Bojo?
Yeah.
So
he's got Secretary of State for Transport, Secretary of State for Med, Secretary of State for something else. They're always talking on his behalf. You very rarely see Bojo now talking about anything.
I just have to say, all the events that have laid out, I understand from what you just said. I was going to ask you a question, Bojo versus Trump. You answered that. Then I was going to ask you, do you feel let down by Bojo? I think you've answered that. Then I was going to ask you, Boris, is he in charge?
No, he's not in charge. He's not in charge of that. None of them are. That's 650 puppets sitting, being controlled by, I think, the civil servants, and possibly behind those civil servants, a shadow government of some description. So, who we never see, and they're probably on one of the floors underneath.
Do you? No, I wouldn't expect you to say it here. But do you hear rumours in your capacity as to the kind of characters that really might be involved in the shadow government? Because I would have thought the civil servants, I love your expression, civil serpents. You clearly are a Mark Levin fan with expressions like that. I wonder if they're not puppets too, no? And that the real shadow government is people that they it's coffee table politics.
It's got to be this 1% that everyone keeps talking about, isn't it?
Or point zero.
Yeah.
Or,
so there's somebody.
Do you hear rumours, Simon, about who might be involved?
All the time. Yeah, and just being on, I don't sort of necessarily hear it through other veterans or anything like that, but you always, hear it on social media, in videos on social media, those QAnon and all that sort of stuff. Sure. So, and all right, I suppose when I started watching those videos 3, maybe 4 years ago, I used to sort of take them with a pinch of salt and think, oh yeah, what a load of rubbish. And then I'd see another one pop up and it would be more of the same. And I used to be quite dismissive of it. But it gets to such a stage, and it's like a form of psyops in itself, really, because you start to take notice of them, and you think, well, hang on a minute. When you sort of join these dots and you jump from this to that to this to that, you can see this picture starting to form. And I'm a believer now in that there's definitely no smoke without fire. This information that's leaked is leaked out, I would say, by how am I going to put this? Perhaps people that work in government around the world, whose sole purpose is to release this information, release the truth, but not in their own name, under, a pseudonym, a nom de plume, something like that. So who's to say that Q, the man in the Guy Fawkes mask, who is on there, who's to say that's not Donald Trump? It's not Boris. That's why we never see Bojo anymore, because he's tucked behind his mask.
He might be writing another book about
food for thought, Nick, food for thought. Or maybe just learning to change nappies. I don't know what he's doing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
He's definitely got some of that stuff going on. Let's just take a few comments and then just a last little exchange before we go. Dawn W says, Fauci said in 2015 we would get the virus. It's a setup. And that is true. He did, and Gates did too. Sarah, Boris has no balls, no faith in Boris anymore. Shan Tiggs, if Boris was that great, he would have dealt with the migrant boats for a start. Don't put any faith in MPs. They're all puppets. And Mike Smith says, I hope so. There's a lot of swamp to drain. The civil service, the schools and universities, MSM, including the BBC, etc. And Dawn W says, I think Boris is draining our swamp. He's got rid of Sedwill. It's a start. Dawn has a point there. He does have... Dawn, she does have a point there.
There's 4 or 5 of the top civil serpents now that have been moved on. And all right, they're probably pulling strings elsewhere in government now. But they're outside, they're out of our line of sight, let's say, and they're not causing us issues now that we're aware of yet. Anyway, so, and I'm a believer that he is, working alongside Dominic Cummings, who they seem to be sort of very sort of trusting of one another and very sort of reliant upon one another, and I think probably they are working together and they are slowly draining the swamp. I would just like them to drain it a little bit quicker, to be fair.
I have to say, I find their rhetoric, and particularly that of Mr. Frost, Brexit chief negotiator, David Frost, superb. But the coronavirus, having to wear masks type stuff, and ruining the economy, it seems to me has been a joke. And the from going from herd immunity line to a U-turn within days, I found that very suspicious. The withdrawal agreement itself, which drives a wedge down the UK with a North Sea border, I think is unforgivable. I think it's traitorous. I had an interesting chat with David Vance, who I thought it was bad. He pointed out to me that it was traitorous last night. Apparently that just I'd like to get your comment on this, Simon. Apparently that border down the Irish Sea that Boris has enshrined in law can only be overturned with not just a majority in the Northern Irish Assembly, but an agreement between both sides of the aisles. In other words, Sinn Féin, which is avowedly pro-Irish,
Republican Army.
breakup, they have to agree, and they're never going to agree to that. In other words, there will always now, at least in terms of trade, be a broken UK. That, I wonder if that isn't Boris's legacy, if not a lot worse.
I think that there's a bit of a paradox going on here, Ollie, because everyone talks about the Northern Ireland Troubles as being sort of the end of 68, beginning of 69, leading through to 2007, with the Good Friday Agreement being in 1998. Now, and we're still sort of got the repercussions of that with the Northern Ireland veterans that are being persecuted and prosecuted by the Northern Ireland Office. Northern Ireland Office is part of it's basically PSNI, so Police Service for Northern Ireland. Police Service for Northern Ireland is mixed religion, but it contains people in there that have links into Sinn Féin and the Army Council of the IRA. So it's a bit of a corrupt organisation anyway. When it comes to this border, then if the UK agree to the border being in there as a fixture, that cuts off Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. That's unforgivable. So how government is going to sort of wriggle off of that hook, I'm not quite so sure. So that's half the paradox. And then the other half of the paradox is Sinn Féin will never want now, even though they said that their excuse for the Troubles and all the drama prior to that, back as far as 1922, when the separation happened, they've always used sort of unification and having a united Ireland back as being their main cause for all the fight in the Troubles and etc. 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 Well, we're in such a situation now where the Taoiseach in Dublin won't want Northern Ireland to be unified with the Free State, as they call it, because it will cost them too much money, and quite frankly, they can't afford it.
Well, they're paying a lot of money to stay in the EU now.
They are paying a lot of money back to the EU. They're paying money back to us, I assume, because we loan them money. We
$2 billion
to bail them out in 2008. So
that's right.
That's the paradox. The UK government, they can't really put the border in and keep it there, and at the same time, they can't say, well, all right, we'll have the border there, but and let Northern Ireland people go. And the other sort of strand to that, I suppose, is if the UK government agreed with Sinn Féin and Ireland was suddenly unified and became the 32 counties again, that makes a complete mockery of the Protestant people that live in Northern Ireland that want to be part of the United Kingdom, the Catholic population that wants to remain as part of the United Kingdom, and there's a large part of that part of the society or community that wants that, because at the end of the day, there's only about 3% of the population that you would term, in inverted commas, bad.
As much as that?
And then, about 3%. That's what it used to be when I was over there.
Really?
And then, that was sort of, that's what they based it on. 3% would sort of be full-blown terrorist, let's say, that wouldn't be willing to do anything through the ballot box, but wanted to continue it sort of outside the ballot box. So the Armalite or the ballot box, for the conversation that used to go on. So And then you've got all the lives that have been lost in Northern Ireland through the Troubles, mainly, but also the years beforehand, all died in vain. So you've got all the soldiers that died in vain. You've got all the civilian population that died in vain. You've got all the terrorists that truly believed in their particular cause and died for that cause, dying in vain. You know, so it's no different, really, is it? To how can I put this? Winning the war in World War II at huge expense to our soldiers and allied soldiers and civilians alike, and then handing our military over to Brussels to be controlled by Berlin.
Which is exactly what's happening.
Exactly what's happening.
Okay, let's finish up on two questions, please, Simon. First of all, what is going on with you now, sir? What are you doing in terms of demonstrations, please?
Right, diary time. Let's have a little looky cookie. I put my eyes on now, Olly. Put my eyes on. Put my eyes on.
Go, yep, get your eyes on. Yep. Here we go.
Right.
And yes.
The David Ellis report is tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. I was due on that, but 7:30 p.m. That's on YouTube.
Right.
It's part of the UK column. I was meant to be on that, but I think I've been pushed back a week now because there's somebody else coming on the report tomorrow, and it's hyper important, actually. Hyper important.
Well, I'll check that out as well. Thank you, David Ellis report. UK.
So I've given way on that for a week.
Yeah.
And then on Saturday, I was told that there was a rolling thunder in Liverpool. That might not be 100% right, but there is an Operation Raging Bull, which is a rolling thunder type event. It's the Ride for Justice, and that's in Birmingham on Saturday. So I think I was wrong in saying Liverpool the other day. It's actually Birmingham.
Right.
But there may be something going on in Liverpool too. I don't know. I might have got both ends of the info. And then after that, the next biggie is Nottingham on the 22nd of August, which is a big patriotic protest. So it's going to be veterans, patriots from all walks of life, protesting in Nottingham. It's a static protest. There will be speeches. I'll do one. That young girl that spoke in Liverpool last weekend, we're trying to get her on board. We're getting other people on board to speak as well. All topics about social services, children, grooming and paedophilia, Northern Ireland veterans, EU military unification.
I'll tell you somebody you might be interested to talk to about that, and that's Tess Finlay, who's coming on tomorrow.
Right,
to talk about
I'll tune in for that tomorrow.
Yes, the Save the Children demonstration going on in London on Saturday. She's coming in to talk about that tomorrow. Tess
Happy
Finlay.
days. Well, it's becoming more and more important because we've got veterans now, and the only reason we've got involved with the kids because I've always steered away.
Because they're the future.
Yeah, they are our future. Yeah,
and because they deserve to have their innocence and their childhood protected in the way that hopefully as best
they do. Yeah, they do. 100%. 100%. And I always said I would never get involved in anything to do with children, paedophilia, grooming, because it sort of it gets to me, it upsets me. I'd rather just talk about. There's not much choice,
is there? There's not much choice, though, is there? Because it's almost inherent with the swamp. Apparently.
That's right. It's so wrong. It is so wrong.
Okay.
Now
last question.
We find that it's affecting veterans' families and kids now, which is why we've decided to get involved in it. Because if a soldier suffers PTSD, and I think I've said it to you before, if a soldier suffers PTSD and social services deem him to be a risk to his family, they'll move in, take the kids away. So
just an aside, just a very brief aside, Simon, about this crazy psychotic kind of subculture that's being enforced on us from below or something. Did you hear that story coming out of France that now women can have their child aborted at any stage of the pregnancy? Right up to birth.
Yesterday I heard that, yeah.
There have to be reasons of, some kind of need from the mother, but that can be construed any which way.
Of course it can. That could be a financial need, couldn't it? Oh, I can't afford to have a kid, and so I want it terminated. Yeah, okay, no worries. Well, I've never been pro-abortion, although I know that it has to be done in circumstances. If there's a likelihood that the baby's going to be born, deformed, or is going to be born but is going to have an extremely short lifespan of only a couple of days or weeks, then no.
Sure.
But for any other reason, that I've always thought there's a better way around it. But it's not for me to say. I'm not a woman, and it should be a woman.
Well, it is. It is too, because we're all human beings, Simon.
Yeah,
and it's also it demeans the whole.
Yeah.
What's it called?
I think what sort of scares me about that, Ollie, when I saw the article earlier on today, was the fact that when abortion is justified because they say, well, it's only the size of it's smaller than a fish, or a tadpole, it's smaller than the pea, smaller than the tip of your little finger, and all that
making
sort
micro robots.
That's one thing before it becomes formed.
Yes,
but when it's ready to.
But Simon, that is all relative. That argument
that's a real grown baby, isn't it? And that's
that
murder,
argument.
then, surely, isn't it?
That size thing is relative as well, though. It's relative. We think, because we're of a certain size, that we have a stature or whatever. That doesn't mean that something that we can't see is worthless. I'm just pointing out that there are other ways of looking at it.
Yeah, mate. Like I say, it's upsetting. It just.
That was a story. Just that was an aside. Okay, last question, sir. Everything hinges on November.
Yeah. What's November?
The election. The 4th.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, the 4th. 4th of November. Does it not? What happens if Biden gets in relative to Trump?
Well, I think the United States has had it.
What about us in Europe and in the UK? And Brexit?
Right, tell me this. Is Joe Biden, is he a Democrat?
Yeah, good question. He's a dementia candidate.
So he's Democrat?
Yes.
So surely to Christ, the black Americans want a Democrat to get into power because it was the Democrats that controlled all the slavery back in the day.
They didn't want to get rid of it.
Government that put an end to it.
That's right. It was Republicans that got rid of it.
So working on that, guys, President Trump, a Republican, should be the black Americans' best friend, should he not?
Yeah, apparently. And apparently
he is. Joe Biden should be like the enemy. Yeah,
the guy that says, "You're not black if you don't support me." But he's got that Kamala Harris woman running as his VP, and she's black, even though she looks white. apparently she's black. I don't know. Who gives a stuff? But apparently somebody does. And so they reckon that they're going to get the black vote with Kamala Harris or something. But she's a weirdo. And she's also been incarcerating people for just smoking a spliff. Go to prison. You got a spliff. Go to prison. I mean, come on. They reckon that she's going to get out the black vote or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, well,
but look, if
the
Biden,
Nazis were good.
Go on.
Friends with Jews. They got voted in 1933, and then they fell out with them. So who's to say that the same thing's not going to happen over there? Joe Biden, everybody's best friend. When I'm president, I'll sort you out then.
Yeah, dodgy.
Like those purges, 37 to 39. It's hoping the officers are listening to that.
I'll tell you what, Simon, I really, really appreciate you coming on Daily Chaos anytime you like, sir, because it seems to me that us civvies and you vets and you military folks, we have to join forces. We have to be united if we are going to retake truly our sovereignty and enforce democracy where we are not seeing it with the likes of Bojo. And unity
is key, Ollie, because this is a massive job. It's getting bigger by the day because there's new issues coming out, all under the guise of COVID-19 and other such things and lockdowns and heading towards this new world order. And it was Tobias Ellwood that mentioned that in a bloody broadcast during the week. Persuading people, the UN. He said, we must persuade the UN to follow the new world order. And that was earlier on this week. So probably have to search for it, but you find it.
That is frightening. That is frightening.
When you bear in mind that he's also...
But that's exactly what they've been saying.
72nd Brigade, and he's also the chair of our defence committee, and he's talking about a new world order with the UN. Yeah, it's extremely worrying, isn't it?
And we know what the UN wants.
Unity has got to be key. This is a huge task, and the people need to be heard. And we're all on the same page. We might come at it from different angles, but we're all on the same page. And we've got everything we need to make it happen. It's just going to take everything we've got to actually achieve it. And we can only do that really by getting our voice heard and make the government or whoever it is aware that we're not going away.
God bless you. God bless you. Simon B. That has been Daily Chaos on this Wednesday, the whatnot of whatnot 20 what? Thank you, Simon. Thank you, sir.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Absolute
God bless
pleasure.
you, mate. God bless you. And tomorrow, as mentioned, Tess Finley talking about Save the Children, yeah? And we're going to be, she come on once in the past, coming on tomorrow to talk about what's going on Saturday and basically what's going on to, well, you know what, try and protect the future. You know, the long term and even the midterm is all very well. We just got to get through the next few months. You know, but nonetheless, talk about the big picture. And then next week, because I stopped doing shows on Thursdays, yeah, so I'm doing a show tomorrow. You might have noticed a disparity, but next week I'm taking the week off. And that's why I wanted to do this show with Tess tomorrow, because the event for Save the Children is on Saturday. But next week, I'm on holiday. I'm having a holiday. Actually, I'm not. I'm building the homepage, because I've got to get that homepage at dailychaos.news finished. And when it is finished, it's going to be great. But at the moment, it's non-existent. But there's a forum there, and you can subscribe, you know, to find out what's going on with the future shows and all that. And check the show out. You should be there now, watching the show in high def. Never mind that, you know, 1 megabit per whatnot rubbish on Facebook and stuff, because otherwise the thing buffers like mad. Go over to dailychaos.news/show and watch it at 9 megabits per whatever it is. Right, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Here's to us and bugger plutocracy. Yeah, right. Oh.